Hello. I know it's getting kind of late. I live near the town of Footville, Wisconsin. My closest neighbors are a retired couple named Donovan and Joni Mitchell. Actually, they really are named that. When I met them, I thought they were fucking with me, and I was like, yeah, I'm Victor Mature. This is my husband, David Crosby. But that's their real names. I'm going to talk about them a little bit at the end of the talk. But Joni, who has that really good Wisconsin accent, and I wanted to say this to you because this is what she'd say, no matter where I am and how much fun I'm having, after an hour I just want to go home. Anyway, so I know, isn't that good? I remember going to concerts when I was a kid and not being able to wait to get home to think about how I was at the concert. Okay. So you'll see me shake a little because I'm really nervous, and I always try to wear light-colored clothing because I sweat violently, like not even kind of like violence, and that's why I wear light-colored clothing because otherwise I do this and Rorschach you into a past life. But I want to talk to you about this question that I've been working on since I went to college. I went to the Evergreen State College in Olympia, Washington. Yes, I know, it was a kick-ass school. It was a hippie school. I started there in 1974. There weren't a lot of hippies. They needed hippies to come to the hippie school, right? So it was the only college I could get into. And honest to God, you could get into Evergreen by like index card, Elmer's glue, peace sign, lentils, full scholarship. And so what I did was I studied with a woman there named Marilyn Frasca. It was a painting class, and she asked this question. It was the first day she asked it, and it's been a question that's guided my work ever since, and I want to talk to you about it. And her question was, what is an image? And the way I first understood it was, an image is the thing that's contained by anything that we call the arts, including design. It's something that's contained by that. And her feeling was that once you understood what an image was, the form you gave it, I always think of it a little puppet, is up to you. So the best way that I can explain what an image is to show you what it feels like. So if you remember your first phone number, I hope you do, because I'm going to count to 3, and we're all going to say our first phone number out loud. 1, 2, 3. PA24435. Very good. Let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3. PA24435. Excellent. Now your phone number from 3 phone numbers ago. Did you feel the difference in your brain even when you're thinking it? Isn't that wild? The first one comes up like PA24435, and then the other one is thinking. So there's a place that's thinking, and that's not where images come from, but that spontaneous thing. So that's one thing. I'm going to have to move my legs because otherwise it looks like I'm shaking, and I am. The other thing is, it's somehow alive. So I always think of the blankie. You all have been around kids who have their first, like some object that they love to be around, their blankie or a little bunny. You were lucky enough to have one maybe when you were a kid. I'm obsessed with kids and their little objects. I was at an airport the other day and I saw a kid walking with his mom, and he just had the leg of his Incredible Hulk doll. Just the leg. It's all I need, man. They always have some little object. And one of the things that if you can go up to a kid it's good if you know them. I had to learn that the hard way. You can't just go up to kids you don't know and go, tell me about your transitional object. Because the first thing they do is they put it behind their back. They take steps back, they look at their mom, and I realize it'd be like somebody coming up to me and go, that looks like an interesting bra you're wearing. Tell me. It's like, no, it's a private thing. That's another thing about an image. But if you say to a kid that you know, is your bunny alive? Is Bunny alive? An 8-year-old, or more like a 6-year-old, knows that Bunny isn't alive in the way that we're alive. Then you say, is Bunny dead? It's like, don't talk about Bunny that way at all. Bunny's not alive in the way we are alive, but Bunny's not dead either. Bunny's something in between. And the way that I can show how we do that as an adult is if you've ever had a book that's been kicking around your house for a while, you keep meaning to read it, and you're like 4 apartments later, 2 marriages later, I'm going to get to that book, right? Then it's one night, you can't sleep, you think, what the hell? So you take the book down and you start reading it, and you're about 10 pages into it. You know that weird feeling you get with, like, this could be a good book? This might be a good book, right? And then you're 20 pages into it, 40 pages into it, it's like, dang, I think this is a good book. And like 60 pages into it, it's like, don't mess this up, man, But it is a good book. It turns out it's a good book. So you're reading it and reading it and reading it. And now you're down to the last 40 pages. What do? You slow down, right? You slow down because this world is only 1/4 of an inch thick. That's all that's left is 1/4 of an inch. And you should have been in bed. You have stuff you have to do the next day, and you read it, and you get to the very end, and you finish it. And what do? Don't you take that book and hold it and look at it like... You know what I mean? There's some things happen. You don't just say, hey, good book, and set it aside. You actually hold the object. And I would say at that point, the object actually contains an image. Another thing about an image is it's specific. When I had heard about imaginary friends. You probably heard about imaginary friends. I always wanted one. I tried to conjure one. So then, all of a sudden, I realized it's an imaginary friend, man. Nobody can tell if I really have one, so I just lied, which meant I had an imaginary friend, right? And I could always tell I was sort of faking because I knew somebody who had a real imaginary friend, my friend Cara. She had a real imaginary friend, and this is how you could tell the imaginary friend was real. First, she named it, she didn't name it, it presented itself to her, named Sprinkles, which was a totally stupid name, right? So you can't make that up. And then the other thing is, she could only talk to Sprinkles through a moving fan. Which, like, you can't make that shit up. You know that it's real. That's a real imaginary friend. So it's specific. I started to get really interested in kids because to me, kids seemed like they still had contact with the image world. And so what I love about kids is if I tell them I'm a cartoonist, they go, really? And I say, yeah. And they say, draw something. And I draw a chicken and they go, you are. And I go, I know. Okay, so, but where I live in Wisconsin, my neighbors who I completely adore, I live in a total farming rural community, they ask me what kind of books I write, and I always tell them horror, because that's the look they would have on their face if they saw what I did. And with them, if I tell them I'm a cartoonist, they'll say, oh, draw something. So I do, and then they're so nice, they'll go, oh, you follow that dream. You know, everybody needs a dream, and that's yours, you know? So I'm sitting next to this kid on an airplane. And I start drawing, and he, of course, looks over, and I establish that I'm a cartoonist, and then I ask him if he wants to play this scribble game, which I would really recommend for any of you when you're in a jam. It got me through years and years of Catholic Mass as a child, where with my friend Evelyn, where you make a scribble and you pass it to the person next to you, and they turn it into something, then they make a scribble and pass it back. If you do that with a kid, you're going to get a story pretty quick. So this kid, his name was Jack. He and I made like 3 passes, and all of a sudden he went, ooh, I have a story for you, and you can make it into a comic strip. And I said, okay, I'm ready to go. And you could tell he didn't even know what the story was. He just had the feeling of, ooh, I have a story, you know. And he goes, and he already knew the title without the story. He goes, the story's called Chicken Attack by Jack. And this is the story verbatim. I wrote it down verbatim. This is it. And I did make it into a comic strip. One morning, a chicken was eaten by a man. The man went to work. His stomach felt funny. He went to the portalette, and then he went. The chicken came out. The man was surprised. The chicken was also surprised. The chicken ran from the portalette to the construction site. They put the chicken in charge, and from then on, the chicken was boss. I know. Is there any part of you that wants to say, you know, we could tighten up the narrative a little? You know, like, no, you're satisfied, right? And it was completely spontaneous. One of the things that's interesting to me when people find out I'm a writer or a cartoonist, they'll say, oh, I wish I could draw. I wish I could write. And I say to them, why? Why do you wish that? And at first it seems obvious, right? Then people will want to make out with me. At first it seems obvious, but the more you ask somebody about why they want to do it, the more I believe that, yes, there's this whole idea that you'd feel like you were someone, but I think that has to do with the fact that there was a time in our life when these things made us feel better.